What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another mailbag. Now, we only got a few questions in this mailbag, so for next week's video, make sure to leave a question down below. Just wait until the end of the video, and then at the end, leave me a question. Make sure it's not trade related, because I did post something in the community tab where you can post your trade ideas and trade related questions, and we'll use that for a trade idea episode that should be coming up in the next couple of days. I know I've been teasing that for a while, so that'll come at you soon. So any questions you guys might have at the end of the video that isn't included in this video, leave them below. It can cover Blazer basketball, it can cover me, it can cover the channel, it can cover a bunch of different things. It doesn't have to be strictly only Blazer related. So as always, make sure to hit that like button below. It really does help me out. I know that's cliche, but it does, so leave me that thumbs up. Also, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. And with that being said, let's jump into your guys' questions. The first question is from Definitive1. Back again. That's what I always used to say because he used to be a consistent contributor on my mailbags. It's nice to see him back with another good question. Now I have to read it off my screen, so I'm going to lean in here while I ask it. He says, Monday mailbag question number 1. With Hood's efficiency, shouldn't Stotts increase his usage rate? And we'll answer the second part after this, but yes, Rodney Hood needs more shots. He's been crazy efficient this season. His true shooting percentage is like 63-64%. He's been around 50% from the field, 50% from 3. He's a solid free throw shooter. He needs more looks. He's not getting enough shots, and he's playing in a starting lineup with a bunch of good scorers. You know, you got Dame, you got CJ, you got Melo, and Hassan Whiteside is a good pick and roll big. So with that lineup, I understand why he might not be getting more shots. He's being used as a floor spacer, and he fits a good role next to those players, but I would like to see him play a little bit more with the bench lineup so that he can hunt his shot a little bit more. I think that he should be staggered in a way so that he's playing with the bench unit. You know, he subs out early, comes back in with the bench unit, and things are structured like that. In that scenario, I wouldn't have Melo in the game with him, and I'd only have one of Dame and CJ in the game with him, most likely CJ, since CJ is usually the one who gets staggered with the bench unit as well, and that way Rodney Hood can get more shots. In that scenario, playing with the bench unit, there probably would be a higher likelihood of Rodney having a smaller guard on him, which he could take advantage of in the low post, which is something that he's really skilled at doing. But yes, I think Rodney Hood isn't being used enough, especially given how efficient he's been so far this season. Part 2 of the question says, would a more up-tempo game help in that regard? That regard being getting Rodney Hood more shots. Would it help us generate more assists? Basically, I like our balance now, but I have to wonder, is coach putting us in the best position to succeed? Thoughts? And I've been pretty outspoken on Terry Stotts. I'm not going to get really into my opinions on him. Let's just say I don't think he's necessarily putting us in the best position to succeed, but the last couple of games have been an improvement. So I have some hope that he might be starting to figure things out, but then again, I've had hope before and it's been dashed from time to time. I'm not really going to get into that though. I'm not going to make this about that. I'm going to address, should we play more up tempo? And I think we definitely should. When this team is clicking, it's playing up tempo and the ball is moving. I think those two things can really help us get a better rhythm on offense, but we can play in the half court. We're a good half court team. We don't have to play up tempo. We just need to share the ball. We just need the ball to move around. We just need guys to be active, moving off the ball. And honestly, when we're pushing the pace, I feel like we accomplish those things a lot more. We play that style of basketball a lot more when we're looking to get buckets early in the offense. Next question comes from Devin Gray, who says, why is it in mainstream media Stotts is not being looked at as a problem, but fans are seeing the rotational problems, defensive issues, and things a coach should fix, yet everyone points at Collins and our chemistry. I do think chemistry could be a piece. Also, would you prefer a rebuild or a big win now trade? I do not prefer a rebuild trade. I would prefer swinging for the fences right now. Let's just start off with that. But as far as the first part of your question, which is basically saying, why is mainstream media so supportive of Stotts, and why do they not point out or talk about any issues like defensive rotations, defensive schemes, that type of thing? Why is it that fans talk so much more about those types of things than the mainstream media? Part of that could be, the companies, NBC Sports Northwest, the companies hosting these shows don't want their hosts to talk about those issues. They might not feel like that's entertaining enough for the average viewer, which isn't as much of a diehard Blazer or basketball fan as I am. Or it could be the host not really noticing some of these things. I don't know. I don't really have a good answer, and I don't want to sit here and bash mainstream media members, even though I do disagree with how the team is covered sometimes, even though I do disagree with some of their perspectives on the team, some of the excuses they make for the team, like everything is due to a chemistry issue and not having Collins, as if Collins was a difference between being a potential top 5 pick and being a potential playoff contender. He's not that much of a difference, and I'm one of the biggest Collins fans out there. So I don't agree with a lot of things that the mainstream media does, but I'm also not going to sit here and bash the mainstream media. I have before on some podcasts, on a post-game show or two. I'm just not going to do that in a video. Kyle Campbell says, mailbag questions. Who are your favorite players in the league that aren't Blazers? And that's a really good question. My favorite player in the NBA who's not a Blazer is probably Rui Hachimura, and I'm a huge Gonzaga fan, so that explains that. I'm a fan of pretty much any ex-Gonzaga player, Domantas Sabonis, Kelly Olynyk. Rui Hachimura is my favorite ex-Gonzaga player who's not on the Blazers. I'm a bigger Zach Collins fan because he's a Portland Trailblazer and an ex-Gonzaga Bulldog, but I love Rui Hachimura. I like some former Blazers. I like Patty Mills. I like Will Barton. I'm not huge fans of theirs, but I do like their game, and I do like them as human beings. I'd say Rui is honestly the only player that I find myself watching his highlights and getting hyped when he has good games. He just dropped a 30-point game against the Los Angeles Clippers against Kawhi and Paul George, and that was really cool to see. He's having a good rookie season. I wish he was on the Blazers. He'd be very helpful at the power forward position, but it's nice to see him balling out in Washington. And then the second part of that question says, who is your all-time favorite player that isn't Dame if he's your all-time favorite? And Dame is my all-time favorite. My next all-time favorite is probably Brandon Roy. Brandon Roy might be surpassed by Zach Collins, Yusuf Nurkic, but it's hard to say anybody other than Brandon Roy because Brandon Roy kind of made me fall in love with basketball. I used to watch more college basketball than the NBA when I was 10 years old. My grandfather loved the Gonzaga Bulldogs and would watch some Washington Huskies college basketball, so I was very familiar with Adam Morrison and Brandon Roy when they were in college. I was more familiar with those teams than I was the Portland Trailblazers. I was young. I was 9 years old. So I really wanted the Blazers to draft Adam Morrison, but if not him, I wanted them to draft Brandon Roy, and then Brandon Roy got drafted. That gave me more of a reason to watch the Portland Trailblazers, and I went to a Blazer game, fell in love with basketball, partly because Brandon Roy played at Washington, and then he ended up on the Portland Trailblazers, and then he ended up being a terrific player. I loved the way he played. I loved the style of his game, so I was a huge Brandon Roy fan, and that was where my die-hard Blazer fandom started, with Brandon Roy. So it's hard to say anybody other than him, unless it's Damian Lillard, because Damian Lillard is Damian Lillard. Patriotic Truth News says, mailbag question, you mentioned Melo's minutes. Do you think we are playing Melo more for the Blazers fans to keep engaged with the team, more than him just being a good piece on the floor? And now, I think I need to put this disclaimer in there. It says that this was asked 5 days ago. So, the past couple games that Melo has played, he's played great. Melo's definitely helping the team, man. It's not just for the fans. I think that fans would still show up at games. I don't think it's helping the team sell more tickets. It's helping the team sell more jerseys for sure, because Melo's jerseys sold out like that. But it's not really that big of a deal. I think that they signed him thinking that he was better than Anthony Tolliver and Mario Hezonja, and he's far, far better than those two guys. He's been a revelation. He's been much better than I expected. Probably much better than Neil Olshey and the team expected too. This dude has been playing great, so he's definitely helping the team. It was definitely a great pickup by Neil Olshey and by the Blazers organization. It's definitely going to help us hold down that power forward spot until we're able to get Zach Collins back, or until we're able to get an upgrade on the trade market. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what Melo has for us. He's definitely playing because he's a much better option than whatever we have at that position. And as I said, there wasn't many questions. This is the last question. It's only question number 5, but it's the last one. But Realistic Traits NBA says, do you see any chance that the Blazers will hold back this season, like trading for worse contracts to get future assets and fight for next year? Even maybe trade away CJ McCollum and change the whole tactic book. And no, CJ McCollum is not going to get traded this year. That is something that the Portland Trail Blazers are not going to do. They just signed him to an extension, and he can't be traded until January 30th anyway, but they're not going to trade CJ. They're not going to split up this backcourt. It's just not going to happen. As far as holding back this season, I don't see them doing that either. I think they'll explore an upgrade on the trade market, a Blake Griffin, Otto Porter Jr., maybe a Danilo Gallinari, some sort of player like that. I think that they'll try and upgrade this team and make this team a threat in the playoffs. Even if they're the 7th or even the 8th seed, I feel like with one upgrade, the Blazers organization feels like they can be competitive enough to have a chance at making a championship run. They'll have Nurkic back, they'll have Collins back, and that upgrade combined with those two returning will make this team a lot better than it is right now. Now, I could see them trading for a worse contract if it doesn't make the team worse. For example, maybe they trade Bazemore and Anthony Tolliver for Nicholas Batum if they were able to get additional assets attached to Nicholas Batum because he has 2 years left on his bad contract with Bazemore only having 1. I don't think Nicholas Batum would be a downgrade from Kent Bazemore. I think he might be a little bit better option off the bench than Kent Bazemore, and he has familiar with Terry Stotts' system, so that doesn't make the team worse. It might make them a little bit better, and they'd also get assets on top of taking on that contract, and then going to the offseason and going into next season, Nicholas Batum's contract would be a $25 million expiring contract that they could use to upgrade the roster next season. Even if they let every contract expire and don't bring guys back, the Blazers still won't have a lot of cap space next summer. They'd only have about $20 million of cap space, and considering who is going out, considering Rodney Hood's a free agent, considering Hassan Whiteside would be a free agent, considering Kent Bazemore would be a free agent, I just don't see how the Blazers end up being better by preserving their cap space. So maybe trading for a bad contract would make sense because that contract would be a tradable piece next season that they wouldn't otherwise have, and that contract could bring in some additional assets. So I could see a move like that happening if it didn't make them worse right now and if it helped them next season and moving on into the future. So anyway, that was all your questions that you guys asked me today. Make sure to leave a question down there in that comment section below. It's the end of the video, so now's your time to send me your questions. So anyway, that's a wrap for this mailbag. Thank you guys for watching. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.